You're listening to Boobies and Newbies, brought to you by the Frolic Podcast Network. This episode is brought to you by Island Affair, the first book in the Keys to Love series by USA Today best-selling author Priscilla Oliveras. Longtime listeners will know that I am a sucker for fake dating and fake boyfriend tropes. Combine that with humor, Latinx culture, and fun family dynamics, all set against the backdrop of Key West, and you've got Island Affair. I received an advanced reader's copy of this book a few months back, and it was the perfect lighthearted antidote to an otherwise dreary time. It's a lot less difficult to make it through quarantine when you find yourself transported to beachy paradise. Plus, did I mention these Spanish-speaking characters? That's like my kryptonite, y'all. Look, we're coming up on summertime and beach season, and even if you can't make it to the beach anytime soon because #social distancing, you can definitely pick up this beach read. Island Affair by Priscilla Oliveras is available now wherever books are sold. Welcome to Boobies and Newbies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and we are back with another steamy spotlight episode, just in time for the start of May, if you can believe it, that we've made it to May. On the one hand, I can't believe we've already flown through 4 months of the year. On the other, I've been trapped inside my apartment for going on 7 weeks. So there's also that. I am joined today by author Nana Malone, author of more than 100 titles, including her latest romantic suspense, Big Ben. Nana, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. And I feel just blessed to be in the presence of anybody that has written over 100 titles. That is amazing.
Actually, I think the 100, you're including anthologies. So single titles, I'm at 83 now. 83.
Oh,
but anthologies included. Yes.
Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
It's still crazy. It's funny, when I started, my first book took 8 years.
Nice. Okay, and now you're just cranking them out.
I've gotten considerably faster. Yes, I've gotten faster.
That's incredible. Oh, God. And you know what? Novellas and anthologies definitely count.
Oh, yeah.
Let's not exclude those from the 100 because that's an incredible, accomplishment to have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the fact that I've been, published for 10 years, and I was thinking about it the other day, and I was like, wow, 10 years. All right, we're doing this. Like, this is what we've done. All right, I pinch myself because it's easy in the day-to-day to just be like, no, yeah, this is just what I do.
Right.
And not stop to just kind of acknowledge that, like, oh no, like, it's like I set a goal, and not only did I get published, but then also my personality is like, yep, move the goal. But like, I set a goal, but then I set a new one of, writing full time. And I've been doing that for over 5 years. And it's just kind of like, oh, wow. All right. So I made that happen. And to sit down and just go, oh yeah, sometimes I get to pat myself on the back and,
as you should,
dribble Oreos on ice cream. Yeah. And celebrate that. So yeah, no, it's pretty great. It's a little wild now, but
right.
But yeah, no, it's good, and I'm proud of the work I've done so far. So yeah, I'm excited to see what the future brings.
That's fantastic. And I know it's a kind of crazy time, and I've spoken to so many people where they're sort of split right now between being the super extra productive during quarantine kind of folks, or the I don't know what tomorrow will bring, so I'm hiding inside, bundled up in my, coziest of blankets kind of people. So I have to ask,
yeah,
how are you kind of getting through this crazy time in our world right now?
I spend a lot of time in my second office, the car. It's bizarre because I had an office, a very nice office. We live in San Diego, and we for 10 years been in this cute little condo, and it was perfect for our little family, but our daughter kept growing, which is really bizarre
They
because
do
they keep
that.
doing that. Um, and we needed more space for, and like, and you know, like it was always tough to have like a lot of friends over and that kind of thing. And so we bought a house, a little, like we're still in San Diego, but we're like 10 minutes east from the city. And it's great. I have an office. I sat at the kitchen table for 10 solid years and, you know, penned many books that way.
Nice.
But it was amazing to like, I'm like, I have an office. The problem is with, you know, little miss in distance learning and my husband on conference calls for work, I can hear them in every room in the house, every single room, every single one. And I'm used to silence because I dictate to do my words and I need silence. And for, you're in LA, so you know, it was raining for 6 solid weeks. I was like, what is up with Southern California? So I couldn't go outside to just like walk around and dictate. So I moved to the car, you know, laptop and a drink.
I love it. You got all the essentials to the car, to the office with you.
No, to the office. And then like I've got a blanket in there when it was like rainy and chilly.
I love it.
You do what you have to do.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm actually going to be moving in a month or so, and I've been kind of like thinking about how I'm going to set up the apartment, and it's a studio, but there's like a little bit of separation from like the kitchen dining area. And I'm thinking that the dining area might just become the new podcasting studio.
I mean, you do what you have to do. You make it work. And I always say to people, I'm like, listen, when you need to do something, you find a way. Like you find a way to manage it and to like. And so, yeah, I dig a dining room as the new podcast studio. Like I can do this.
I'm glad to hear too that I'm not the only one that enjoys working and writing at the kitchen counter.
I mean, the thing is, it's necessity. I would not have chosen to work that way. Especially with like a small child, especially when she was little,
right?
Because she couldn't be reasoned with, you know. It's like you gotta. That's like a toddler, and so there are these pictures of me when she was a baby, and I'm feeding her on one side and one-handed typing. You know, I was like, gotta get these stories out there. That's before I had to switch to dictation, and so like. When she was a toddler and I'm trying to edit and she's like climbing in the lap and I am typing literally around like a tiny octopus. Like she's got like a hand, it's touching the pen. She wants to type. She was, yeah, man, the struggle was real. But like we were in a condo. I don't know what it was like, well, I could not do this.
Make it work. Tim Gunn style.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, you know, with a piece of scotch tape and a smile, you know, it's like, I'm gonna hold this dress together, watch. So yeah, no, I mean, so I dig a dining room space because you just need to be able to block it off with some quiet. So I think that works. That works great.
Yeah. And then of course, in my case, I mean, the first thing running through my head is, well, that makes me closer to the snacks. So that's also important.
Oh my God, the snacks. A friend of mine called it the Corona 15, like the freshman 15.
Yes.
Like, no, it's the COVID 15.
Yes.
And, I had to yesterday, I looked at myself as I was about to eat another packet of Oreos. Don't judge. And I was like, no, stop it. And so my husband and I came up with a thing. It was like, well, you can still have the snacks because, I mean, we're stuck in the house. Still have the snacks, but I had to do squats before I could get the snacks. And then I was like, after the squats, I really did not want them because I was like, that burned a lot. And so it was like, I'll save these for another time.
Yeah, even Oreos aren't going to soothe the burn that, my thighs are feeling right now.
Right? God, I woke up and I worked out this morning. I was like, God, I'm sore. And I was like, and I looked at him and I was like, what? Remember when we were 16 and athletes? Remember that?
Right.
And it hurt a little bit, but the way you bounced back was nothing short of a miracle.
Oh my gosh. No,
Whereas,
so true.
Now I'm just like, oh, it hurts. I mean, the reason I dictate to write is I used to do Krav Maga, which is the Israeli martial art. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. It was a great way to just get out frustration and aggression, but also just really learn how to how my body can work for me. And I loved going, but I tore my labrum in my shoulder. And so that pretty much ended that. I'll every now and again, I'll still go for a workshop. And of course I don't know how to pull back. And so inevitably, I'm just like, oh, that really hurts. And then I'm in like, and I have to go back to PT exercises and the whole thing. And so that's, like, I was like, remember when it used to like not hurt, or like you would hurt yourself and then you were just like, no, it feels like I'm fine 2 days later.
Yeah,
Like
it's
now
a good hurt.
at this age, yeah, now at this age, it's like, listen, I'm out of commission, can't move my arm for a month. Like, you have to ice everything. It was like, yeah, it's not, now it's not cute. It used to be cute, but now it's just not.
I found the same thing with like the types of rides that I'm still able to go on at amusement parks. Like, because
yes.
I'm
Oh my
telling
God.
you,
Yes.
the last time I was at Disneyland and I went on those fucking teacups, I was just like,
oh my God.
no, this is,
oh my God. Yes. Oh my
lived
God.
for
Yes.
the teacups. When I was a kid, I lived for spinning, and now
Yes.
not so much.
Yes. No, it was funny. The Del Mar Fair came last year, and we took our daughter, and we both were like we love roller coasters. This is a family that loves roller coasters, like loves it all. But my husband, she wanted to go on this, like, God, I forget the name of it, but it was like the tube you were in, or the pod, spun, right?
Right.
And then you were encased in this like ring of like 5 pods. And that also spun in a different direction. And then it was like a seesaw wheel thing that also was spinning. And he was like, okay, he's like, I'll go with her. And afterwards he was like, nah, bruh, nah, listen. I mean, and we went to, God, it was a couple birthdays ago now, but we took him to Six Flags for,
that is
birthday.
The ultimate stomach ache right there.
Yes. and it's not, so like, even the spinny ones aren't the problem, but like we got a fast pass, because we're like, listen, we are too old to wait in line. But now I realize there's a reason for the line. It's to give your brain the adrenaline break. Because we, of course, with our daughter, we're like flying through, having a grand old time. And then after like the 3rd ride, I was like clenching my jaw, just like the being rattled. And like, I had a full on adrenaline headache. I was like, oh, this is why they make you wait. Yeah. This is really the reason.
Oh my gosh.
Because by the time you wait for an hour, your body has come back down, right? And you're evened out, and then you go on a ride and it's fun. But by the time, I was like, we need to take a break. Eat something, walk around, something.
Well, and then once you eat something, you're like, I mean, now that I've eaten something, like maybe I should just sit down.
Right? Yes.
Take a nap.
Yes.
And then why not?
Like, yeah. And, yep. And you need that break. And of course, my daughter's like, let's go. Because she's a child.
Of course.
Yeah. And she doesn't know this pain. She's like, my parents are old. And it's like, no, you don't understand. Look, back in the day, how I would hang with you on these roller coasters, but not anymore.
I know. I mean, I just turned 29, and I feel like I've been using the phrase, when I was your age, a lot more recently.
Oh God. That the thing that makes me just go, oh no, is that you're 29. I am significantly older, and so I'm just like, oh, how often do I say this?
We
were trying to explain to the kid how we had to just sit there and watch what was on TV at the time, and there was no cell phones, no FaceTime, and she was horrified. And so I'm like, I hear you, like, you saying it to people. I'm like, yeah, but like, I'm like, because your life like 15 years ago was completely different than like anyone who came after you. So and so different. you're like, man, enjoy this Netflix, man. I didn't have Netflix, It's like whatever it was.
We turned on TV at a specific time after reading the TV guide to tell you when a show was going to be on.
Yes, amen. Like, I mean, the other day, like my daughter, she's like, oh, I'll just Google it. And I just looked at her because 3 months ago, she had no clue what the hell Google was, because she barely had access to the internet. Like we were, we were just like read a book or whatever. Like she wasn't on the internet like that. But listen, she's like, oh, mommy, I'll just Google it. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, I found it on Wikipedia. It's fine. So the answer is, and I'm like, and it's funny how quickly they adapt to new technology. I mean, like, it because it's like, okay, when new stuff comes out, like it's the younger people who adopt quickly and like they're out there like, you know, making videos for TikTok and whatnot.
Oh.
But like it's so funny watching her because like an iPad, like I had the iPad Pro for work. I hand write to edit.
Right.
And so when this whole thing started, she needed that iPad so she'd have like the better video quality, whatever. And so I'm like watching her navigate this iPad that I've had for 3 years. And she knows how to do things on it that I'm like, what did you just do?
What is that program?
And she's like, oh no,
it's
just easy. You just go like here. Yeah. And you just go here and you just make this happen here. And it's just like that. And like her explanation is so just, I'm like, what?
That's
I need a nap.
Yeah. No, right? Just listening to it.
Yes. I'm like, I'm just going to sit here. And she's like, I'll show you, mommy. And I'm like, you 9. What are you going to show me? Listen. I mean, it's like COVID has taught us all a lot of things. But back to the original question. I mean, it's funny. I see all these people who are like uber productive, or not uber productive, sorry, learning new skills and like and they're like, oh, and I'm binging reading this and I learned how to do this. And I was like, how do you have time? Because I still have a very specific schedule. Like books, like a lot of people were trying to figure out if they were going to move releases or not. And I hadn't had a release since, like, I was like, no, I got to stay on my schedule. That's the whole point, is the schedule, and like how to move it along and whatever. And so I released, and I was like, okay, so I'm staying on schedule. And I was like, super cute that, you know, you guys get to binge watch all this stuff, but like, I still got to run a business. So
right. Well, and you were already working. I mean, you work from home. You work from your home office / car office.
Absolutely.
And I mean,
yep,
I have a very similar setup, is that I was already working from home. Most of my job was from home when this started. And so it's kind of been, I feel like, a rude awakening for a lot of people to kind of transition into that work environment from home, for those of us that are still lucky enough to be having some sort of, you know, work from home situation.
Absolutely. Definitely see that. I mean, my husband is that way, you know. I mean, although he's considered essential because they have government contracts. But they are all working from home. So he's an engineer. So he had to go and get like a couple of, I mean, he's been in, not last week, but the week before, he'd just been in once. And he finally just brought his, like, the computer setup. He's an engineer. So like, he's just like, I'm just going to bring this machine to the house so that it's easier. And then, so yeah, for him, he needs to go out. He needs to see people. He's an introvert. But he's that introvert who like still likes to be amongst people and able to do things. So like, I feel for him, because he's like he's the one who goes grocery shopping. He's the one, you know, he needs to get out. Like, it's funny though. I could be like, before this all happened, I was like, I don't need to leave my house. I literally would take my daughter to school, pick her up from school, and stay my behind in the house and not care. But the moment I was told that I couldn't, I was like, I just want a Starbucks.
That's exactly what it is having like the option taken away from you. Like, because I mean, it's when you work from home, especially, you want those little moments of just kind of getting outside, you know, even if it's just to go to Starbucks for a couple hours, or, you know, like you said, pick your daughter up at school.
You know, I mean, the basics. And it's funny because like when I get stuck on a book or something's not working, and I will be the first one to tell you, I hate edits with like the strength of 1,000 suns. And so edits are the first thing where it's like, when it's editing time, as it's about to be like tomorrow, I'm the first person to like roll around on the floor and moan to the dog. Like, I mean, it's like every time it's editing time, she's like, oh, you got edits, huh? And she brings her ball and she's like, here, this will make you feel better. And she drops the ball on my back as I lay there, and I'm like, but why?
So you're going to have to bring the dog out to the car office, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, I have to figure out how I can lie down in the car and roll around. It's not really conducive, but it is sunny now. So I think what I can do is, I'm going to go out to the grass, you know, and roll around on the grass and see if that like brings the same edit feelings as usual, and see how that works out.
And if it doesn't, it'll probably just, you know, get your allergies going, and then you'll just have an excuse to avoid edits.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Win,
I like how you're
win.
thinking. Yes. Except no matter what I do, the book is still due. So it's like,
So let's talk about you and your books. And I want to take you back a little bit because from your author's bio on your website, notamaloneromance.net, I read that your romance and adventure started with a tattered romantic suspense you borrowed from your cousin on a sultry summer afternoon in Ghana at a precocious 13.
Yeah.
So I'm so curious. Can you elaborate sort of on like where and when your romance journey began?
Sure. Yeah, no, so I'm from Ghana. The accent, don't let it fool you. Grew up mostly here, but I was born here and we went back when I was just a tiny baby. And I spent my early formative years in Ghana. So when we moved back to the States, we would go back every summer. And so this is summer I was 13, summer I turned 13. And, you know, like a lot of Ghanaian parents were very conservative. And it's like the idea, I still remember I caught a beat down at CVS one time because my mom caught me looking at romance covers. I was 10 and she was like, Nana, what is this nonsense? You know, like full on, like I just, it was not okay. So I was 13 and my cousin, who's also named Nana, but the family called her Sissy. And she's like, Psst, Nana. And she's like, there'd be romance inside this book. Kissing. And she taps the table and she slides it over. And it was like, I don't even remember. It was in Mills and Boons. I remember that. I don't remember the title, but it was like some like Greek shipping tycoon scenario that was probably not PC at all. And there was like someone trying to like murder his family. I don't remember.
Of course.
But something along the lines. And it was his secretary. And like looking back and I was like, this is sexual harassment. Like I just,
Oh yeah.
But somehow like his secretary got involved and then they were getting it on and there was kissing and there was sex. And I was like, I'm in.
Right.
And like, I never looked back. I did get smarter about the covers though, you guys. I would buy the book and then tear the covers off.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, then I have to ask, what did you do with the covers?
I would just throw them away, but it was my job to take out the trash. And so it would just be easy. So like, I would, my contraband, right? So like there was a store, I grew up in Massachusetts and there was a store in a little town called Shrewsbury. And it was called Hale's Drugstore, right? And so that's where I would get most of my contraband from.
Love it.
And it was a very tiny collection, so it was historicals, obviously, because like back in the day, it was like full on historicals. There wasn't like a lot of like, there was contempt, but it was like Harlequin contempt. So if you like, and I think it was like, it was Kensington Zebra Line was the one that I would always kind of go to. And it was always historical. And I would get them. And then on the way, of course I'd have like my stash of candy too, as you did with my best friend. And she wasn't really into reading. So she'd always be like, oh, I don't get it. But I'm like, no, I gotta. And so then we go to her house and I would tear off the covers. And her mom taught at like an all girls like Catholic school. So she was going to get it worse than I did if they found the covers. So I would tear them off and then I would just kind of pocket them and, take my contraband home. And then I would, when it was time to take out the trash, I would get rid of the covers that way. And I would have stacks of stacks in my room, books in my room, and she wouldn't even, because I did read a lot, so she didn't even like notice, which was,
gosh.
The thing is, I read a lot of stuff I shouldn't have read, like, that wasn't really, 13-year-old appropriate. Like, I read Mario Puzo, Fools Die, and I was like, I had zero business reading that book, but it was on the shelf in my grandfather's house, and, like, I still remember that, like, musty smell of like old books and I can feel the dust on my fingers as I'm like reading and I'm like but like she didn't say anything about that because the covers weren't salacious and she's like oh yeah I'm sure it's fine and but yeah, so my love of romance started that way. And that summer we would like she's like oh this kissing and so like and then if I found anything that had like kissing or sex in it I'm like this one. So we were just like trading books back and forth like under our parents' noses, and they had no idea.
It's the 13-year-old like romance black market, basically. Like, here,
basically.
I'll get you this.
We were Yeah, we were in it to win it, man. And I've never looked back. It's funny. I mean, I still love to read everything. I love thrillers. Obviously, but like romance is like my go-to, like, because I can't read while I'm writing. And so when I finish a book, like a draft of a book, I stop and I take like 3 to 5 days off and I inhale.
Oh, I
Like
love that.
I inhale. And then it's like my brain, it's like you feel a little logy and you're like, oh, that was too much. But like, yes, it's awesome. And then I like start edits or whatever the case is.
You're
So I'm
not the
about
first
like,
person to tell me that either, that you step away from reading as you're writing. That's so interesting.
yeah, I mean, because I used to, back in the day, I used to write several books at a time. And sometimes that still happens, especially like if I'm under contract with a publisher and then obviously I have my indie stuff going, and then I have like a co-writing project. So sometimes that still happens, but I found that I'm better off if I can just focus on one thing at a time.
Sure.
But when I used to like write more than one thing, what happened was, like it'd be like, oh yes, and this book is like best friends to lovers, but then like somehow the character would just like be a dick. And I'm like, what? How did this go wrong? Like, he was such a good, nice guy, I mean, like sexy, but like, what happened? And then I realized that another book that I was writing was Enemies to Lovers, and he was just like a dick. And so I was like, oh, I'm getting Transference. And it was like Transference of my own. And I was like, no. And so I just had to like go in sweeps. I know people who can just go from one, like, like the more experienced writers who like have lots of books out and they can just like, be like 2 hours on this book in the morning, 2 hours on this book in the afternoon, 2 hours on this book in the evening. And I'm like, oh, like I could, but it's not wise.
Yeah.
Because then there's more edits and you already know how I feel about edits.
Right.
So
we already have enough trouble. We don't want to fuel the fire.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I learned that I just get transference. And so that means I also really cannot read while I'm writing. The good news is I write quickly. And so I do get to get that like
that's
inhale of books after I'm done.
Yes.
Before the editing starts. Yeah.
Well, and there's so much out there to read too. I mean, it's incredible.
Oh my God. So much.
And there's always
so
more.
Much.
There's too much. I mean, there's too much for me to be able to get through. So oh God, but I love it. I love that there's always something waiting for me whenever I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah. And the options now are really amazing because like you didn't realize, especially like back in the day, when I was a kid,
when I was your age,
but like there, like, yes. Okay. So like, for me, there was a struggle to find, authors of color. Like, and I was like, people are going to look like me in the books. And I was like, oh, and so there's Beverly Jenkins, there's Brenda Jackson and Beverly Jenkins. And I was like, okay, great. But I read faster than this. So what y'all got? And then, Sandra Kitt came out and like, you started getting like smaller authors that you were like, and I lived in like Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, which was Whiteyville, USA. So we were not getting like those like early lines that had Black characters. And so I was like, okay, well, this is what I got. And so, plus also I inhale. And so back then the operation was, it's like one book a year. That's what you release.
Yeah.
And so like this trying to find kind of the different kind of things that you wanted to read was more difficult. So like with ebooks, I remember like back in 2009, 2010, when like, and I had read some ebooks, like, back in the day, I used to get them from like All Romance ebooks and other places online when I lived in New York. So it was like about 2000, 2001, and you could find some that way. And I was like, oh, these are sexier. I like sexier. But it was still like, and it was like real small presses putting them out. Still kind of hard to find, but I would read them on my computer. And then when ebooks started becoming like more of the norm, and then Kindle came out, and then it was like you took the doors off the hinges, and it was just like everybody's like anything you want to find, you can find.
It's true.
If you can dream it, you can write. If you can dream it, you can find it.
Yeah.
And so, but doing a search for it was, it's gotten more sophisticated now, obviously. There weren't really bloggers then to be like, you need to read this kind of book if you're looking for this. So at least people were writing those kinds of books and publishing them on their own, and obviously some were better than others. And when you remove kind of that like gatekeeping aspect, You get, varying degrees of quality, but still you could find some like real gems in the early days and you'd be like, oh my God, this is great. And then like I have authors that I've like followed their career throughout that I'm like, oh, I love so and
Right.
so's writing, and I still pick it up, and I discovered them when like, back in 2010.
And now the gems are everywhere.
They're everywhere. I
Ugh.
mean, like, and sometimes you just need to try. And I love that you can get like a sample of the book.
Yes.
I think that that's really key to like, so that you can see if someone's writing is your style. Like, I mean, because like, I know a lot of people writers get bent out of shape. They're like, and then they left me a 3-star. Now, listen, I do get bent out of shape, which is why I'm not allowed to look.
Yeah,
But it's
that's
like,
for the
but
best.
it's for the best. But it's like also like, well, that's okay. Like the way I look at it, I'm like, well, I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I mean, I'm fabulous, but not everyone is going to appreciate my fabulousness, and that's their loss.
That's so true. I mean, I went to grad school for screenwriting, and that was the most valuable lesson I took away from school was, you know what? Not everybody is going to love your work, and that's okay. That doesn't make you any less of a writer. I mean, that doesn't mean that you're not a good writer. It's just that we all have our own personal tastes.
Exactly. And the trick of it is, one of the things that a bunch of us tend to go on retreats and whatever every year. And then one of the big things that we go to is RWA. And there was this one speaker one year, Jennifer Lynn Barnes, who is amazing. She's a psychologist, and she talks about the psychology of fiction and what really writing to your id means. And like everyone has their thing, that like you will watch it, you will read it, you will consume it. It doesn't matter how bad it is.
Right.
You are still like, I'm going to scratch this itch. Like for me, it's like anything Robin Hood.
Okay.
I don't care how bad it is. That new Robin Hood movie, man, I sat there. If it is on TV right now, I will watch it. I don't care what I'm doing. I will stop working.
I haven't seen the new one yet, but I do want to see it.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like, I love this, like the concept of like, someone who was rich, but then is like, he's like, oh, the establishment sucks, and I'm going to steal from the corrupt to give to the poor. What? I'm here for that. And so that's why when I wrote Big Ben, I was like, oh yes, anti-establishment. And I'm not. And the thing is, I'm a rule follower. I love a rule, but like I need justice. And so when people don't follow the rules and are bending the rules for their own purposes, I'm like, I need justice.
Oh my
gosh. And I need someone who's also part of the establishment to met that justice. And I'm like, yes.
Now that I know this about you, that you love Robin Hood stories, I mean, this makes so much more sense for like what you write. This is fantastic. I have to tell you too, like one of my earliest memories of having a sex dream was a Robin Hood sex dream.
Yes. Because it's like,
it's so hot.
Yes. I mean, it's like this guy, he was a lord, and then it was stolen from him, and it's a really corrupt system, and the people are suffering, and he was like, I will not let my people suffer, and I'm going to rob these motherfuckers blind.
Yes.
And I'm like, yes.
I love a good like thief heist story. That's my thing, is I love a good heist for sure. But
yes, that's one of my big ids. And so the key is when you're like, what Jennifer Lynn Barnes was like, she's like, write what you love to like consume.
Yeah.
She's like, if you write what you love, you will find other people who also want to read, who also have this like need for it. And then it's a matter of taking those ids that are your ids and also universal ids and packaging them in a way that everybody wants to read about them.
I love that. And that's such good advice too for writers. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it was amazing, and kind of because for Big Ben, I took everything I loved and I was like, no, I always add to stuff. Always. Even when my books are rom-com. It's so funny. All my friends, I'm like, no, I write rom-com. And they're like, no, you don't. You write like this like weird in the spot. They're like, people get shot at. And I was like, yeah, but nobody dies.
Right. Like it's funny.
And funny. Right? And they're like, yeah, that's not rom-com. Like, and I'm like, no, but I write rom-com. And they're like, no, you don't. I mean, like Kyla Lindsay sat there at a retreat one day. She goes, no, you're writing like action adventure. She's like, it's funny. Yes, but this is not a rom-com. And I'm like, no, but there's a meet cute, and then they're like bantering. And I was like, totally a rom-com. And she's like, people got shot at. It's not a rom-com. So, but I write this actually I said this to someone the other day. I was like, I write between Melly Rain and Julia Kent. I'm like the merge.
Ooh, okay.
It's not a secret that Julia is Melly, but I'm like I take the two sides of her personality and I write like I'm in there. It's funny, but people are gonna get shot at. No one's gonna die.
Yeah, exactly. It's all good. Nana and I will be right back after a quick word from our friends at the Mermaid Podcast.
Hi, I'm Laura Von Holt from the Mermaid Podcast, part of the Frolic Podcast Network. The Mermaid Podcast is, you guessed it, all about mermaids. I cover everything from mermaid legend and history to mermaids in pop culture, movies, and TV. My guests include mermaid experts, mermaid historians, mermaid authors, mermaid charities, mermaid tale makers, and even professional mermaids. Yes, being a mermaid is a real job. So whether you have legs or fins, are a mermaid queen or a mermaid at heart, the Mermaid Podcast has something for you. You can find us at mermaidpodcast.com and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
And now, on to the show.
So I basically threw everything, I leaned into everything that I loved. Like I leaned hard. I was like, Secret Society's check. I will watch The Skulls if it is on.
Okay.
I watched The Skulls 2, which is terrible. And The Skulls 3, which is really good.
We have to talk about that because, I mean, you've mentioned it a few times, so we'll just dive right into Big Ben. And you described this book as Office Romance meets The Skulls and Ocean's 11, which I'm like, okay, Ocean's 11, heist movie, I'm in, like, done. And the fact that you mentioned The Skulls, I mean, what a reference.
I took it back. Listen. I took it back. Wait.
I love The Skulls. I mean, if anybody has not seen The Skulls,
my God.
This is like such an underrated
piece
of garbage that I love.
Listen, okay, Joshua Jackson in those baggy ass jeans. Listen, a young, beautiful Paul Walker, may he rest in peace. I mean,
R.I.P.
Yes. With your fine ass. Listen, rest in that peace. Listen, The Skulls. I did a live Instagram IG watch with Rachel Van Dyken because we both love The Skulls, and I was like, yes, we're gonna watch this. And we did a live watch like a week before release or something like that. And it like we just had a blast. And we're like, yes. And I was like, oh my God, the fashion, you guys. Leslie Bibb with that like pin straight hair. I was like, obviously I have an afro, so there's no way I'm getting pin straight hair. But I was so jealous. I was like, oh. Yes with that. And I was like, and we were just and I was like, everything I love in this book, like I was like, look, I love secret societies. Yes, I'm here for this. I love heist. Any heist movie, I don't care what it is, I don't care how bad it is, I will watch it. I will watch it over and over again. I will consume it. If it's a heist book, I'm here for it. In case you need a new heist show to watch, Money Heist on Netflix. Watch the whole thing. It's fabulous.
Okay.
Yes, it's outstanding.
I've actually seen it on there and I haven't watched it yet. And you know what's so funny is I feel like just this week, somebody posted on Twitter that they were looking for more heist movies to watch with their family.
Yes.
And I'm just like, okay, do you have a specific like favorite heist flick to recommend along with Money Heist?
Oh yes. Okay. Inside Man.
Or any personal favorites?
Yes. Inside Man, I think is like brilliant. Like
good one.
Because the first time you see it, when you obviously don't know I was like, oh yeah, like Inside Man was just like, mwah, chef's kiss. And I'm like, I have a dirty daddy fantasy about Clive Owen, so that's just what we're doing.
Ooh,
yes,
okay.
It's just I'm here for Clive Owen. And the thing is, it's like I'm like he's not really like super good looking, but like it's his voice. God, that voice. I'm like I can listen to it all day.
He has kind of like a rough look to him too that like I can get on board with.
Yeah,
like, he looks like he's been in like one too many fights.
Yeah, and you're just like, I could be here for this. I love Clive Owen, so yeah. So Inside Man, obviously Denzel is being Denzel in the whole movie, and it's like, yes, I am here for all of the Denzel things. Let's see.
Right.
Takers. Also another Paul Walker one. You can start seeing, and it's got Idris, my second husband, in it as well.
Ooh,
And
I don't think I've seen that one.
yes, it's on Netflix and it is fabulous. So yeah, Takers, and it's got my my man on the side, Michael Ealy, with his beautiful eyes. Yeah, so that's an excellent one, and it also has my underrated crush, Hayden Christensen. I know he's not always a terrific actor, but I just have a thing for him. If I see him, I'll watch it. I don't know why.
That's fine. That's fine. We all have those
We
people
all have
in our lives.
yes,
that
we all
we
have
just,
the one that we're like, he's not great. But I want him to be better than he is. So I'm just gonna keep watching. So Takers is a great one. I love Takers. Oh, obviously the Italian Job. I was so bummed they did not make a Brazilian Job one. But yeah, Italian Job is just like,
yeah, that was
that's
a
how
big
you
one when
heist.
it came out. I feel like that was like one of the like
Yeah,
heist movie
dude.
revival like starts for sure.
Yes, yes. And then the recent one that was Widows, with
Oh,
yeah,
loved it.
Widows was stellar.
Yeah,
Like it was just so good.
It was-
I was like, yes.
it was amazing. I've seen it multiple times. Like I loved it. And you don't
Viola
see,
Davis.
You don't see enough female-driven heist movies. Like I know that they did
Yes.
Ocean's 8, which was fun, but
Yes.
yeah, no,
It
Widows
was
is
fun,
great.
but not as good. Widows is amazing. It's got Viola Davis, Cynthia Erivo. They were so and oh my god, yes. So yeah, Widows, yeah. So those are my recs. Anyone who's like looking, those will hit the spot. Those will get you in the heist feel, and you'll be like, yes, I've heisted today.
Well, and if people are looking to read some heist, they've got Big Ben to turn to.
Big Ben.
And
yes.
this is the first book in your new See No Evil trilogy, just released April 21st. Congrats on the new release.
Yes. Thank you.
And can we talk about how hot this cover model is for a hot
Oh my
second?
God. Yes. His name is James Klippinger. And I will say he's a twin.
Oh, what?
Yes, there's two of them. And he's one of my dear friend Wander Aguiar, photographer. He's one of his models, and this was the first time that I had, asked for like a specific shoot to be done for a cover, and I was like, okay, since I'm not far from Vegas, I'll come out, and I'll do like a whole weekend. So I went out and I was doing some work, and then I had my cousin and my bestie joined me out there, and so like we celebrated my birthday, and then I was there for the shoot. And then Wonder was like, oh, since you're here, we'll have you shoot. Like, I do covers sometimes for him as well. So I shot with someone else. But for this one, for that cover,
cool.
I was there for it. So I got to be like, I'm like, no, put your hand like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, that's James. He's so lovely. So nice. And yeah, he's beautiful. Very, very,
I'm going to be
attractive.
dreaming about that jawline for a while.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because when I first saw him, like I'd seen a picture of him, like one of Wander's like older stock. It was like 5 years old or something like that. And I was like, hey, is he still shooting? Because his body's insane. And Wander was like, yeah, we haven't shot with him in a while. But let me see what he looks like now. And in that photo I saw, I think he's always had long hair, so his hair was slicked back. And I saw him with the long hair, and I was like, oh, I don't know. Because these are billionaires, and, I generally want like a cleaner cut. And then Wander was like, trust me. And so I was like, okay, I'll trust you. And, obviously I wasn't going to make the dude cut his hair just for my covers. Like, that's dumb. And so, because, he's a working model. So I'm like, well, you got to have your look. And so I went up, and then like, the way Wander and Andre styled him, I was like, oh, I see now. I see what you mean.
Oh my gosh. Well, and I'm so glad you didn't have him cut his hair because, ooh, baby, it looks good.
And that jawline, he had a little bit of, because like they were like, oh, because Wander loves a beard, and I was like, please, no beard. But I was like, I can do stubble. And so I was like, yes, a little bit of stubble is good. So yeah, that jaw with the stubble, it's real nice. Well done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, it works out well. Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say that Big Ben has ties to one of your previous Royals series.
It does. It does. So the in the book, and it's not at all a surprise. So I'm not spoiling anything for anyone. But so in my previous royal series, one of the princes, didn't grow up a prince. He grew up a thief, basically, a thief and a con man. And so when Ben and his friends need someone to help them pull off a heist, they make a call to this, former con man thief guy. And the best part is, for readers who are like paying close attention, you actually met Ben and his friends in my royal series. He's the cousin to the king's best friend. You met him briefly in the series. I just was like, yeah, this guy Ben, the heroine works for him and whatever. And I utilized that a little bit, but you don't have to have read the royal series at all to. I always introduce the characters and always I'm like, and that's who this person is, and that's who this person is. So this is a fresh start. But for those who did read the royals, or want to go back and read them, it is connected, and you get to meet the crazy cast that is, and it's a fun little like fan service.
Yeah.
Because people were like, oh my God, Prince Lucas! And I'm like, yeah, guys.
I love that. I mean, as a longtime romance reader, that's one of the things I love, is that I'll read a book from an author and then see some sort of like callback to a character or a moment in that book in a new book. And it's always like a fun little, like an inside, not an inside joke, but like, like a little tee-hee moment.
Yeah, and I do that a lot. Like, I'll refer to photography was a hobby of mine for a long time. And so I will, in my very first book, Game Set Match, the heroine, Izzy, was a photographer, and she went by the moniker Z-Con or whatever. And so in every few books, I'll have them have a Z-Con photo. And there's nothing better than when a reader emails you and they're like, oh my God, I just saw the breadcrumb and I love everything about it. And I'm like, yes, I got you. They're like, that Easter egg was dope. And I'm like, yeah, man. Yeah.
Yep, that's all for you.
So yeah, I try to do that as often. I mean, I have enough books that it's like with my more popular books, I tend to just, filter it in. Like, sometimes I'll use like a hotel chain name that I had from, Sexy and Stilettos, or like I'll have them kind of briefly meet a character. And, sometimes it's like, and then like, and fans are like, oh my God, they just all words collide. And I'm like, yeah. So it makes me happy when I get to do that.
And judging by your body of work, it seems like maybe you have a thing for royals and writing royals.
It's weird. God, I mean, it's shocking. Yeah, no, I do. I lived in London I did my master's in London many years ago.
Okay. There we go. It all makes perfect sense now.
Yeah, I remember obviously when Princess Diana died, I was in college, and I remember kind of like that feeling and seeing the boys. I don't remember really caring that much about the royals before then. I knew, every young girl is like, oh my God, yes, prince and princess. But that there are real princes, and you're aware of them. Is at least for me, I was aware, but I didn't really care. I wasn't that into it. Watching Princess Diana, and we were all new Princess Diana. It's like, oh, she's so beautiful, and she does all this great charity work and blah blah blah. So you of her, but you weren't aware of the sons until she died, really.
Right.
Right. And obviously you knew about her and Charles, and you're like, oh, that's awful. I remember watching their wedding. We'd just moved back to the States, and I remember being on TV, and I was like, she's a princess. Why is that dress so ugly? But even then, I had snark for days. But then when I lived in London, I remember okay, this is going to just sound so just bougie and terrible, but I used to roll with this crew, my friend Safa, that I had, a friend of mine from Ghana, and she was living in London at the time. And I remember she's like, oh, come on by the house and, meet my boyfriend and his friends. And her boyfriend was a model. And I was like, what? And he had these random models living in his house. And I was like, say what now? So we would go out, and they would just be like, oh yeah, we're just going to be at this place, with a line out the door. and then you just like roll in with this crew of models. It was very bizarre. And yes, I did go to class. I did. But like you would be at these parties, and I remember there was this one club. God, it was called Funky Buddha. And it was near Mayfair.
Nice.
I want to say. And once, like, the one friend was like, she's like, oh my God, over there in the VIP, I think that's Prince Harry. And I was like, what? But of course, it's like barred off. You can't see it. Like, I mean, I was like, I don't know. And so I was like, what? Prince Harry's here? And then all of a sudden, it's like we're hyper aware of the royals. And so, of course, in every club after that, it's like if we managed to get into VIP, I was like looking around, like, anybody famous? Because I mean, like British people, it's always funny. I'm always amused by like British TV. Like most British TV, like the people are on TV, but like you won't be able to tell because they look normal. They look normal and average. And you're like, why are you putting
That's a good point.
Putting like average folks on TV? Now you can't tell if you're out who's famous. So it was always funny. So, but like, yeah, so I like became like really into the royals then. And so for me, when Meghan Markle, like when Harry and Meghan were like going to be a thing, I was like, oh my God. Like, because at first it's like, wow. And then like, because she's a woman of color, like that, like also just like, it's like, oh yeah. Like, it's like, because women of color are often like, on the bottom of the totem pole for like love stories and happy endings. And so it's like, yes, girl, get your prince. And then it was all happiness and joy. And then, well, you know, the underlying theme of the event all occurred. And you know, and Harry had that big dick energy and was like, nope, take my wife and we leave it. So y'all can kick rocks.
Oh, yeah. No, when they left, I was just like, y'all just got like even sexier together.
Yes.
The fact that you left everything that's happening.
You know? And I mean, and when he's like, look, I watched What Happened to My Mother. And I was like, oh, yes. Okay, yes. Yeah. I was like, and he was just like swinging his big dick like, look, I think I'm going to protect my wife and my child and all y'all can kick rocks. Done. And I was like, yes. Yeah. I'm gonna write more like
this
Harry
is a Harry
fanfic.
I can get on board with. Yes, Harry
like,
fanfic all the way.
More Harry fanfic. I'm like, let's do this. I'm like, he's all up in here with his just, wow, look at that energy. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes. So yeah, I'm gonna write these royals into the ground.
I love
but
it.
I mean, I got lucky. You know, like Cheeky Royal released right as they got married. You know, like, because I conceptualized it. And I, like, you know, there've been kind of rumors that they were dating, but I'd already conceptualized it. I'd already kind of like written a draft of it by the time like they came out as a couple. And then I was like, oh yes, this is perfect. Because in it, my heroine, Penny, she's Black. And so, and they live in this island, you know, fictional island in like near the Caribbean, like in the Caribbean. So it's like, well, yeah, there are brown people and it's like a big old bag of M&Ms. So like, yeah, Penny's Black. And so I was like, oh my God. I was like, Meghan Markle just made my life.
It's so true.
Yeah. I got to use that. And I was like, thank you, Meghan Markle and Harry. I appreciate you. I do. But yeah, no, I love royals. You know, I don't love the institution of royalty. I mean, because there is like, I mean, I watch the Queen and whatever, and there's like, there is a part of me that loves tradition and loves the, you know, like, oh yes, you know, there, like, this is how people, there's like a formality to it and like rules to follow. And there's a part of me that really loves rules to follow, unless they're stupid rules. And then I'm buck against the system. But I do like the idea of royalty, and I like the idea of modern royalty, that there could be modern royalty that, you know, but like I like people having those kinds of traditions. But obviously I always want to twist it on its head. I'm like, yeah, yes. You know, I'm like, yes, of course there are rules against marrying commoners, but we're going to change those rules. Or the prince is just going to go ahead and marry the commoner and not tell anybody until he needs a wife. And then he's going to be like, well, I'm already married. I married her in Vegas. Done. Yeah, you know, and then hijinks ensue.
Right, and then we got to throw in the heist and the Ocean's 11 and the skulls and the secret societies, of course.
Yes, people got to get shot at, you know. People got to get shot at.
Yeah, but not die.
Right. Because, I mean, that's just, like, really morbid. That's, like, it's so dark.
Oh, God. Well, and so I love that, you know, you've got this new series. And for anybody that hasn't read Big Ben yet, you know, no spoilers there. But where did, like, the whole idea for this specific trilogy come from?
Okay, so the idea for this trilogy, like I said, I'd introduced Ben and his friends briefly, and the early, like this was 2 years ago. And I just kind of peppered them, and I was like, oh, I kind of like this idea of these three friends, and they run a hotel together. That sounds fun. And I was like, oh no, of course it's gonna be based in London because it's my favorite city, and I love London. So yeah, and so that's kind of that was only the blueprint I had. I was like, yeah, and then I gave one of them a fiance already. And so I was like, oh, so that's a good conflict that could come up. Like, it's funny. And I don't know how other authors do it. I know some other authors do it like I do. And it's just like you just feed the seed of the idea. You're like, oh, I have these seeds. Okay, great. I'm going to plant the seeds because you don't know what's going to happen. Like I have characters that are planted throughout series, that I've done nothing with, but like, I still have them in a notebook that I'm like, oh, I put him in the series. Like, what's he doing now? And so like, it was just planned. I didn't really know what I was going to do with them. And I was like, oh, and Ben was hilarious. He kind of just like jumped up off the page. So I made some notes about his character. And then I just was like, okay, well, we'll see, like, I didn't really know. I just figured I'm going to write royals till the end of days. Until the royals stop working.
Yeah.
And then when I finished, so I did it like TV shows. So I did Winston Al season 1, which was the 3 duets, and then I transitioned to Winston Al season 2, which was kind of like their bodyguards. And then I was like, as I started Winston Al season 2, I was like, oh yeah, what am I going to do over here? And then that's when I heard Jennifer Lynn Barnes speak, and really about like leaning into your id, and the story just started to kind of formulate, and I was like, okay, and Sierra Simone is a very good friend. She's like, make your id list, and I'm like, okay, which is basically the list of the things that you just like you are trash for. Like no matter what happens, you're like, I'm gonna watch this. This is terrible, but on it goes. Like if anything's a superhero thing, I'm watching it. I don't care how bad it is. I'm gonna watch it. I don't care. I will watch it. Sorry, I love superheroes. So I made my list, and like it was funny because the things, and then at the same time I took the Strength Finders class, which like really talks about why you do the things that you do and like what you love and like really how to lean into them. And one of mine was consistency, which makes sense. I was a project manager, and I like and I like routines, and I very much just like when routines get dislodged, I get very cranky and impatient about that. But
same girl.
There's also part of consistency that's like, no, really, you like the reason you have high consistency is you like everyone to be treated the same at all times, to everyone to have a fair shot, which is really about your sense of justice. And I was like, yes. And so really it helped me understand why in these rom-coms, like fluffy light rom-coms, I keep being like, and someone got kidnapped. Because I need for there to be like a bad guy, and then for the bad guy to get justice. And so it really helped me understand like why I always do that. Or like I don't find a book that I read boring that doesn't have some element of suspense. I find books that I write boring if it doesn't have an element of suspense. And so it just really helped me solidify why I leaned. I'm like, well, someone's got to get kidnapped or shot. Are we trying to steal something? Like, I'm like, we need a bad guy, And so it really helped me. And I was like, oh, that is an id. I was like, if I don't write that. And also I'm achiever is my number one, which for anyone listening is just basically, I like to make my lists and I like to cross them off to achieve things, to complete them. And I take on a lot, and I like to be able to do that. And every single heroine I've ever written apparently is an achiever.
Well, do you know how excited I am to like cross off the fact that we had this recording today off of my list?
Yes.
So I understand the list making.
Yes. And so it just helped understand it. So when I was like, okay, trying to just like think ahead to like the new series, I was like, oh, like these like strong female heroines are like, they've become a brand thing for me, but because of that's like what I need. And I was like, I really need the sense of justice. And then I happened to be watching TV one night, and Robin Hood was on, and I just kind of perked up, and I was like, modern day Robin Hood, what can I do with that? And then I was like, no, modern day Robin Hoods. And I was like, and for days, I mean, you can call Sierra Simone and ask her, like, I mean, I think for days I was texting her, I was like, modern day Robin Hoods. And she was like, we'll do something. And I was like, this is me doing something. I'm just thinking it through. And then and then quickly the idea started to form, and I was like, okay, well, I was like, under what circumstance would, someone who is, like a lord or someone who's wealthy, like have to resort to this, you know, either someone who, you know, their family falls from grace, someone who loses everything. You know, I was like, that's not real noble. Like in modern days, if you're like, you know, your family loses all their money and you decide to steal it, that's not cool. In modern day. Right. And I was like, so how do I make it so that it's like important? I was like, oh no, what if you take billionaires and there's like one thing that they can't buy, right? Like,
yeah.
And then of course you give them a reason. So it's like, oh, what if, you know, like someone that they love died and there's someone who's responsible, and to make that person who's responsible pay, they have to get something, but then it's like, oh, well, they can't buy it. And it's like, billionaires who can't buy something. Oh, and then it's like, well, how do you get it? And then that's how like it started to like come about and started to grow. And then I was watering, it started to flower, and I was like, yes. And so, yeah, this trilogy especially is key. And then of course the love aspect, like, you know, who are the kind of women that, you know, will relate well to these guys and really like call them on their bullshit.
Besides,
as well,
you know, the two of us.
Right. Because, you know, it's like, it's weird, like writing yourself into a book, and I try not to write friends into books anymore because that really freaked a friend out once. And she was like, you made me exceptionally flexible. That's weird.
You're welcome.
Right? And I was like, you got lots of orgasms. I don't know why you're mad.
Yeah. Nothing to complain about.
Right. Basically. So yeah. So like, and for me, that's how it works. It's like, I see it ahead. So like, you know, for next year's series, you know, when I'm done with the London Lords, like I'm already thinking ahead. I'm like, okay, like, what am I really feeling right now? Like, now I'm looking at the id list. Like, what's really like an id for me? That's like, oh yes, I must have more of this.
I love this idea of the id list. Like, I'm for sure going to do this for myself because I'm always trying to think of like the next thing I'm going to work on. And I feel like this would be so beneficial.
Oh yeah. I mean, and it's just like literally all the things that you are trash for.
Yes.
And it's hilarious because it's like when I look at my list, I'm like, listen, like if it's got a secret society, it's got a heist. And I was like, it's got like a really like kind of not like super dick, but just like kind of like a really cocky.
Yes.
Kind of guy. Like he's funny and snarky, but he's just like so full of himself.
That's Robin
And then
Hood.
obviously that's Robin Hood. And then it's like, and then like with the heroines, it's like their match. It's like this, like I love a tight banter. I read Mia Sosa's The Worst Best Man the other day.
I just finished it too.
Oh my God. Yes, girl. Like, I mean, I was like, I had to shout her out on Instagram when I was doing my Talk to Me Thursdays. I was like, girl, I was like, that was chef's kiss banter. That was the kind of banter. It was just like, this slide comes, like they were like that, and like I personally love writing like that. That it's just so like it's like having a conversation. It's like tight. It's like tight. It was tight like a virgin. I loved it every second of it. I was like, yes.
Well, and it's like when it's done well, it's like verbal foreplay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, that's the whole point of it.
Yeah,
you know, it's like if you have people bantering that like aren't like yes, it's verbal foreplay, but it's also like. You can see, like, I always see it as like really the formation of relationships and how well people banter, like in a book, right? And so it's like, I have, like, this isn't going to spoil it, but I have, you know, one of the London Lords bantering with someone in the book, and their banter is so funny and so tight, and like they're not going to end up together because she's like in love with someone else. And that's a real thing that's going to happen, but like. It's really funny because you're watching their friendship form and build over this banter. And it's just like, and I love, so Mia Sosa, she just did a great job. It was like this tight, like, pop. And I love writing like that. Like, I know, like, it's not necessarily for everyone, but I love that kind of And then a book I just read recently, God, I always forget the title, but Juno Rushton, if you love like kind of like tight suspense, that's just like sexy romance as well. Juno Rushton, it needs to be on your list. She is amazing. And I always forget the title. I think it's Every Last Breath.
Yes. Every Last Breath, published 2019.
Yeah. It was just, oh God, she is so tight. Like it just, I was like, oh, all right. Okay. We're doing this. All right. And I think rumor is that she was in like the intelligence community.
Ooh.
And so, and like for me, it showed.
Okay, cool.
Because of just like the depth that she could go into, like the fight scenes and the hero and heroine when they banter and they fight and they have like a long history, and it was just like, and you could feel I was like, oh, I mean, I haven't read, and I read a lot of suspense books. I really like that. Like I haven't read one so tight.
Ooh, yeah. I'm seeing the like preview, 48 hours, 2 covert operatives, 1 chance to get it right. I'm hooked. Like that's all I need.
Yes, right. And it was, I was like, yes, I'm here for this.
Oh, good. Something to add to my reading list.
Yes. And I did that one on audio, and it was superb. So like I've been like wrecking that book to everyone that like I fight. I'm like, no, but you need to read this book.
Well, no, that's great.
Listen to it on audio. This book, you need to. She's so good. I'm like such a fangirl of hers. Like if I meet her, I will probably die and be like, oh my god, your fight scenes.
I love hearing about authors like fangirling over other authors. Like
oh my god,
it's great.
I'm gonna be like, it's not gonna be like, oh my god, this character's so hot, but I'm just gonna be like, but these fight scenes though, how do you make it? Just how did you like? Were you like practicing it out and then stopping to type, or were you just like recording it and then like pausing and then being like, okay, now I'm gonna write this. I just gotta know. She's so good. Like I read it and I was like, you know, when you read something so good and you're just like, I quit.
Right. Like that's it. I can't ever accomplish that. So I guess I should stop now.
Yeah. I quit.
Oh.
I'm just going to give up right now.
No, you're not. No, you're not. And the fact that Big Ben is out now, it's available. So what's up next? I mean, I'm assuming the rest of the trilogy is soon to come.
Yes. The rest of the trilogy is coming. So, let's see, The Benefactor is out on June 9th. And yeah, so that tells you right now it ends on a cliffhanger. Sorry, guys. Mess up, not sorry. And you know what's interesting? People like are really like, oh my god, and the authors are not going to write these books in like one sitting. But you know, there's a thing about cliffhangers that forces a very specific type of storytelling. Like for me personally, it forces me to be tight and like it forces me to really plant every seed where it needs to be planted. Like it forces me to like keep it together. And, you know, when it's a single title, I mean, it's great, but like, you're still kind of like, oh yes. And at this point, this is going to happen. And at this point, this is going to happen. And like, and you're like, okay. And you can tie it up with a bow. But in a cliffhanger, it's like, you're forced to like one of the things that we talk about is that like, especially when you're writing books that have like multiple layers or suspense or something, like they're like, look, start your book asking a question. Ask the question. Do not answer the question for the love of Christ. Do not give up your tension. Don't answer the question. And they're like, only answer the question when you have a new question to ask. And so like it forces you to be like, okay, so, but then what? And then this happened, but then what was there, like, how did that relate? But then also you have to seed all of those things so that they're all connected. And I love that it forces me to do that.
Yeah.
So The Benefactor continues the saga, and you get like really into the nitty gritty of like full heist and like all the things that are going on and what's happening. And then the final book For Her Benefit is like really all things are revealed. And I finished drafting that today. I'm mostly done. I just have like the last, like, you know, the cleanup fluffy. It's like, okay, is everything tied in a bow? I got everybody. I didn't leave anybody off. Okay.
Yes.
No one was left without an orgasm. Okay, cool.
Everybody got their orgasms. Came. We're good. Everyone's great. Okay.
Everybody came. You in the back, you came twice. Quit complaining. Okay, everybody. Okay, good. And then you tie it off. So those are the scenes I'm basically writing today. And then, then the next, up next for me is I start book 1 of The Next London Lord, his trilogy.
Yes.
Exciting.
I know, I'm super excited. And because I think I've seeded it well for like his heroine, like, which will be a surprise.
But like I'm kind of excited because I'm like, oh yes, oh yes. So yeah, so like I get to like start like plotting out. I kind of know like the overall like the general romance trope and kind of like how a heist works for that book and that couple and that London Lord. But I know nothing else. So I'm like unfolding and discovering as I finish writing. I'm like, oh, so where does that leave East? Okay, all right, yeah.
Well, I mean, it sounds
yeah.
like you've got like plenty on your plate for 2020.
Yeah, no. 2020 is actually East End will be my last book of the year, but I'm going to use the second half of the year to like just write like The Devil is Chasing Me.
Yes.
Finish up, the next couple of trilogies, like if I can really swing it, and then so 2021 just starts with a bang, honestly, and and then I've got some ideas, like again looking really at that id list of like really what I want. One of the things that I'm super excited to like dive into. Do you remember the show Alias?
Oh my God,
I had Jennifer Garner.
Of course I do.
Yes. So I'm gonna do like a full Alias fanfic. I'm here for this.
Yes.
So yeah. I think I'm gonna alias it up. I think that's what's next after the London Lords. I'm gonna alias it up. Yeah. So that's kind of like where I'm going. So that covers me for the next couple of years, and we'll see where I end up after that.
Maybe the answer to this is your Alias fanfic, but I always am curious. Yeah. Do you have like a story that's just kind of the one that you're dying to write that you don't even know like what the full story is yet, but just something that's like lurking around in your brain or on one of your many lists that you're like, this is the story that I need to write at some point?
Well, yeah, this is Alias fanfic really is kind of it. Cool. That and La Femme Nikita fanfic. Ooh. I've been like, they've been, and okay, wait, not that crappy CW version. Stop it. Listen, we're not, no, okay, no, not that version. I like Maggie Q very much, but no,
yeah,
that was shenanigans. Okay. But there was a version, you are probably too young to remember this one, but there's a version on USA, that had starred Peter Wilson and Roy Dupuis as Michael, and they were just like a very sexy pairing. Like it was on when I was in college, and I was just here for it. I was like, what?
I for sure did not see this, but I just Googled it, and like just the pictures alone, like I am hooked.
That fanfic has been in my head for years. So it's like, it's either Alias or that one will probably, like, if I was like on pure love, I'm like, La Femme Nikita is happening. So like, but like, I got to figure it out. Cause in my head, I'm like, it's kind of like young adult, like it'll go new adult, obviously, because sex. But yeah, if that was the one, it'd be like La Femme Nikita. I'm like, yes. Yes, Peter Wilson. Yes, Roy Dupuis. Where are you guys now? Doesn't matter. I'm
real. For real. Like, I'm looking at these two people thinking, wow, you are gorgeous humans. Why have I not seen you?
Yes. All of this. And there was, and obviously for like anyone who doesn't know La Femme Nikita, it was a Luc Besson movie done like a long time ago. For anyone who doesn't know, basically it's like this young girl who like, is, like has fallen on hard times and is kind of like a criminal running with a bad crew. And she gets arrested, quote unquote. And then instead of going to jail, she is taken to like an, obscure government organization. Yeah. And they train her to be an assassin.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, starring Anne Parillo, something like that. Yes, that was the original and like super sexy. Then we did the American version, which was Point of No Return, with Bridget. Oh God, I'm forgetting my 80s icons here. What was her name? Because we haven't seen them since the 80s. That's
Bridget
the problem.
Fonda. Yes, Bridget, because Bridget Fonda, as Nikita, and that was also good, but not as good as the French version, right? But it tells you like how like these stories, this particular story has been told over and over and over again, because it's like really, it's like this young girl who was essentially sort of minding her own business, but you know, like she'd fallen on hard times or whatever, and then like gets swept up in this like world of espionage and like assassins. And they've told different versions of this story. I mean, like Sparrow, like any version where it's like this young girl is like, oh my god, and then she's trained. Okay, look, on my id list is a training montage. I love a training montage like nobody's business, where bitches learn to fight.
It's on the list.
You know, where they learn to poison people, like any kind of training where they learn to be seductive, especially if they're like awkward. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I've
all the
seen
training montages.
This movie with like Scarlett Johansson and you mentioned Sparrow. Yeah, I feel like I've seen this movie many a times.
Yes, many times, right? So this version of this like, you know, beautiful female assassin. And so like what I want to do is take that and take, you know, like Femme Nikita fanfic and make her black. And I'm like, yeah, she's going to like rock a full on afro. Like,
yes.
Like we're doing this.
Here for
and
it.
She's going, yes. And she's going to have this like super hot handler. I mean, basically Alias is Femme Nikita fanfic in a way, like honestly.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds very similar.
Super similar. And then the other show that I was like, no, I'm going to fanfic the hell out of this is Covert Affairs. It was
love.
Yes. Augie, anyone? Where is Christopher Gorham? Where is he?
The other one that I loved was White Collar.
Yes. Oh my God. Matt Bomber. You know, I went to college with Matt Bomber. He went to Carnegie Mellon like I did. Yes. Him and Joe Manganiello were my year.
Oh my God.
Except I was like, I looked at my husband, we went to college together, and I was like, how did we never see them on campus? And he's like, well, Matt Bomber was a dramat. And so he's like, they kept them away from the rest of us normal people. And I was like, this is true. This is very true.
That's true. You probably saw him on stage in like a weird play at one point.
Yeah. And like Megan Hilty, like huge Broadway star, went to Carnegie Mellon my year. And so, and Joe Manganiello, I'm like, you know, I don't think he looked like that in college because I remember him on One Tree Hill and he did not look like Joe Manganiello. He looked like he looked so Jersey Shore, like in One Tree Hill.
I forgot he was on One Tree Hill.
Yes. He was so Jersey Shore, and I was like, I bet you anything he did not look like that when he was on campus. Wow. Because we're all thinking of Joe Manganiello from like Magic True Blood, Mike. Joe Manganiello.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, Magic Mike, True Blood. That's what we're thinking of.
That's prime
Joe Manganiello probably looked so much more like Jersey Shore Joe Manganiello than anything. That's why we didn't notice. And I was like, oh my God, because how did they go to school with me? And we had a very small campus. There was like 1,800 undergrads. Yeah. Where were they?
I actually looked at Carnegie Mellon at one point for grad school.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yes. CMU Tartans, baby. Super nerd school. But they have an excellent drama program.
Yeah. It sounds like you've got so much on your plate for 2020. So regardless of whether or not we are trapped inside, you will have plenty of things for us to look forward to. You've also given us so many amazing book recs that I am excited to add to my list. And I feel like, you know, on top of that, there's a lot of stuff that you've said that I think is great for writers. I had read another interview with you where you had offered some advice to writers with the term bitchok, bitchok, but in the chair, hands on the keyboard.
Hands on the keyboard.
I love that.
I mean, it's a standard thing. I mean, especially times like now. Listen, I am the first one. Like when it comes to words, usually I'm like, I don't have a problem getting words. Like I wake up early, I do words first, and I'm going to have a good word day, right? But in these times, especially, it's really hard, and it's easy, especially with all everyone's home, all the distractions. It's like, oh, but look, everyone's having snack time. I'm going to eat whipped cream out of the can. It's great. But like the word, like you won't hit your goals that way. Like at the end of the day, like I remember it was like I saw Nora Roberts speak at RWA once, and she just was like, she's like, look, the number of people that will come up to you and tell you how much they want to write a book. And she's like, then sit your ass down and do the work. That's just the, you know, it's writing anything is not easy. Like it requires you to to really kind of like open up a vein and bleed, no matter what you're writing, whether it's writing a grant or like doing my master's thesis. I wanted to shoot myself.
Yeah.
But or it's fiction and you are like immersed in the world of these characters. But at the end of the day, you have to do the work. Like
Yeah.
no, like when you say you want to be a writer, and it's like, and like that's amazing to be able to sit down and finish a book. The number of people that like start and stop and start. I mean, I did it. It took me 8 years to write.
I'm so guilty of that too. I mean, I totally understand.
Everyone does it. But it like the discipline and like and injecting that discipline into your life.
Yes.
Especially in case of like a book or a screenplay or something like that, like it just takes discipline, because at the end of the day, you can't fix what you don't have.
That's very true.
And so for people who are like, oh, well, I'm afraid it's going to suck. But I'm like, well, it could well. Who knows? I mean, that first book I wrote, dear God, I hope it never sees the light of day. My goodness. Even my first book, because after that, the one I wrote after that, Game Set Match, that one was published. And when I got my rights back, I edited it and like, but still that was 2012 that it got re-edited and like uploaded. But even that 2012, it's 2020. Are you kidding? If I went back and cracked it open, I'd be like, oh,
yeah.
God.
It's, oh my God.
I need to fix
even
this.
Just like looking back in like old journals or diaries or something is one of my favorite pastimes. I think it's the funniest thing to read about, like what one you thought was important, 10 years ago, and two, how you actually wrote it down. And, the fact that you can compare that to like what you do now and like, oh my gosh, I've come so far and everything, but you wrote it down. It was important enough to put on paper.
Exactly. And I mean, and people get like really caught up in the, and it's not going to be perfect or right or good. And it's like, look, at the end of the day, like perfect is the enemy of good enough, and you can't fix what you don't have. And so the key is like, finish it, because you can go back and be like, okay, like let's make this work. I mean, and I hate edits. I want to die.
We know.
Because you're going to find me outside on the lawn crying.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like I did the work of the outline. So I put the story pieces together, and maybe they worked, maybe they didn't. I'll find out. But the only way to find out is to actually have the book written. So like my brain like thinks that it's done. It's like, well, I've done this twice now. Like, you made me do an outline. Okay. And then I wrote the book. Okay. So why do I then again have to look at this book again? Isn't it done? And that's why I hate edits. But the best part about it is that like the book, I can fix it. Like I can fix anything at the end of the day. It's like, oh, well, okay. Like, it's like, oh, this is a hot mess, but at least there are words there, like, so I just always say, I'm like, you can't fix anything that's not on the paper.
Yeah, no, I think that coupled with the whole idea of the id list are both great pieces of advice to offer to writers. So I guess the last question I have for you is, what advice, on this podcast, we are all about boobies and newbies. We are about introducing new romance readers to the genre. And my question for you is, do you have advice for newbie romance readers?
What I would say is, I would say make your own id list. Right? Like the kinds of things that you like love to consume. Like, because I think most people aren't even aware, right? You just know that if a friend asks you to a movie and you're like, oh, what's the movie? And you're like, oh, I don't really like movies like that. Or like what, like you're like, oh, I'll go, but you're not really into it. But because I think what happens is, especially readers get into these ruts, or like, they're like, oh, but I'm only going to read this thing by this person because I trust that author, which is great. Trust the author. But like, I think a lot of even a lot of established readers are not like, I've never read that person. It's like, why? I don't know. I just, and so they're not really open. And to stay open, I would say like, make your own id list, like things that you are like, no, I'm trash for this, because you could like, and then do the simple search on Amazon, or Google if you must, like, and be like, oh, books with this, or like, that's going to be easier on Amazon. And whether you buy on Amazon or not, like if you buy on Apple, fine, take your newly found book to Apple and search for it that way. But really search for the kind of things that you are like, no, I'm trash for. And then honestly, like, especially look at the author and see if they have free books available.
Yes.
And most of the times, and you can try them for no money. Or you can follow the author on BookBub, and you'll be notified when they have a sale or something, and then just read a couple samples. It costs you no money. If you don't like the sample, then that author's style isn't for you. Fair enough. But like really try, like, based off of what you love, because there's a lot of authors out there that aren't, don't get a lot of play because they're not like the Amazon 100.
Right.
That you might be missing out because they're on page 2, and they're somewhere in the top 200, but you're missing out on because you're like, well, yeah, this is what everyone else is reading, so I guess I'll read this, And then like find the people that you love, that you trust, that recommend good books, that they're like, because sometimes a lot of bloggers will recommend like a new author or whatever, and that you haven't tried. So it's like, just be open to new people, because you never know what kind of gem you're going to find. But yeah, I'd say make your own id list. Yeah. And then if you're like, hey, every friends to lovers romance book. Yes. But then skip the first page or two and go into like the next page 3. Look at those top 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to find yes, everyone loves these books by these people, of course. But what if you tried someone else?
Right. Don't feel pressured to read what's like the top recommended, friends to lovers romance. Like that's great. But I feel like also with something like that, you might feel pressured that if you don't love it, there's something wrong with you or the genre or how you consume it.
Yeah. And that's never like, whatever you love to consume and you love to read, like there's no like, we're all in romance together. Like there's no shame in like what you love to read, like whether it's Amish or whether you are reading Harvest of Sighs by Sierra Simone and you don't know what to do with your life after. No one's judging you, and no one has a right to judge you, because at the end of the day, it's what you love is what you love. Besides, what's on your Kindle is your business.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, it's your business. It's like I see that Daddy Kink. I didn't say a word about it. It's like consume art how you want to consume it, and like life is too short to to give a fuck about what other people think of you or what you're reading, or like read what you love.
No guilty pleasures here.
Yes, none of it is guilty. It's just a pleasure.
Exactly.
It's like, I love this book. If you love it too, and if you love these like 4 things, excellent. This is why it scratches my id list. I wish like bloggers would be like, yes, this is what's on my id list. And then that would help us in terms of like what to send them to. It's like, hey,
I have just launched the podcast website, and I am going to make my id list because I love this idea.
I mean, it's funny that like we're talking, because I didn't know that you like loved heists, and I was like, this is like the perfect melding.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, then read this heist book right here. And so like that would have been great to know, because like what if I'd come at you with one of my books that was like not a heist, and I was like, this is a rom-com. Not really.
I mean, to be fair, I probably would have loved that too.
Yes,
but
possibly.
I am a sucker for a heist. I mean, I don't know if it's because we're both fire signs,
possibly,
or we're both, epic achievers, but yeah, I am into the Robin Hood heist trope, so I am here for it.
So like it helps people know, but also it helps like your friends if you're like, listen, do you have anything that covers any of these things that I'm trash for? Yes, no. Because it also helps you really understand why you love the books that you love, because one of the frustrating things for readers, and I think for authors too, is like readers are trying to read like a book that like isn't to their taste. Right. Like, and it just isn't, because everyone's been talking about it and they're like, oh, I just need to read it. But it's like, well, it just didn't hit any of your ids. So of course you're going to be like, meh, like, yeah, you're going to be like, meh, because it didn't tickle any of your ids. Because you get those reviews sometimes as an author and you're like, oh no, I mean, I liked it. It's like, I didn't love it though. And they can't pinpoint why. Well, you can pinpoint it in that it's like, well, it doesn't strike any of your ids. So like, of course you're just gonna be like, well, no, the writing was good. Like, that's the worst kind of review to see. Like, oh, like, it's the writing was good. And you're like, oh, so I'm technically perfect. Damn.
The writing was good, but it just wasn't for me.
Exactly. So if you can be clear about what you love, then you can also really understand why you love certain books and why you don't. And then you can also kind of separate that out, be like, okay, so like this isn't like my favorite kind of genre or trope, but it was still great and here's why. And then you can like structure your reviews and like your opinions about it differently because you're like, oh, well, I really like these things over here. And since it wasn't that, and that's what I was really looking for, that's why I didn't love it as much as I could, but it was still good. And here's why, like I think that every reader should make one and know and understand what they love.
Well, and that's a great lesson for, someone like myself as a podcaster and romance reviewer. So I think that's something that all my fellow romance reviewers and bloggers and podcasters can take from this and add to their reviews. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad the Sierra made me do it. And then I was so happy that I did because she was like, well, look at it and see what's at the top. And I was like, anything Robin Hood, heists, thieves. Got it.
I'm going to add making an id list to the top of my to-do list.
Yes. Happiness abounds.
So last thing for you, Nana, and then I'll let you go. Where can everybody find you, your books, follow you, and of course, get your latest release, which is Big Ben?
I am Big Ben and all my books are available at all retailers, Apple, Amazon, Nook, Kobo, Google Play. 27 titles are available in audiobook. I'm going to be doing more. I have one series, my player series in Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can also find me. And then in terms of social media, you can find me at my website, notamaloneromance.net. Or you can find me on Instagram, which is where I usually am. I post the most there on Instagram. So Not a Malone Writer. You can also find me on Facebook, Not a Malone. And I am on Twitter at Not a Malone, but I don't tweet that much. I'm not on TikTok, but my 9-year-old is like campaigning hard for that. So
right.
We'll see.
It's only a matter of time.
It's only a matter of time. But I am mostly on Instagram. If you want to hang out and connect on the socials, that's where I'm mostly chilling.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I feel like I've learned so much personally. So I'm so excited to take a lot of the things we've talked about.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I had such a blast. This was really, really fun.
Yay! Thanks so much for listening. Boobies and Newbies is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. You can follow Boobies and Newbies on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Boobies Podcast.